Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas. Couple of World Cup winners joining us in a moment.
And
Plus Craig's here. Let's kick things off, shall we then, in London. Spurs against West Ham, certainly the notable game today. West Ham winning by 2-1. What that means, of course, Spurs were top of the table. They continue to slip, though, down the Premier League as they go to 5th. And they are now 9 points adrift of Arsenal in first place. Come on, let's welcome in, shall we? Frank Leboeuf is with us, as is former Tottenham striker Jurgen Klinsmann.
How come we never got Jurgen on when Tottenham were absolutely flying?
I know. That's
we wait for the sort of
the dip, the honeymoon era.
Some of the negative connotations that are maybe coming their way.
Jurgen, from a Spurs perspective, this was pretty much a carbon copy of what we've seen of late. Them taking the lead and then throwing it away. It must be so frustrating for Spurs.
I think frustrating is the right word here because they had it in their own hands. They could have scored the second goal. Even if there was a tie there after the 1-1, Richarlison had the big chance to make it 2-1. And then it goes the other way. I mean, they dominated the entire game, or at least the first 17 minutes. And yeah, you got to put it away and you got to utilize your chances. The few chances you had, I think David Moyes showed defensive masterpiece in a certain way. He kind of was very resilient defensively. He didn't give any space to the Tottenham side, especially my player Sonny didn't give any opportunities really to get on the score sheet. They made it very, very narrow in the middle, in front of the goal. It was almost no way to come through there. At the end, they were a little bit smarter, Spurs. They came over the wings. They had a couple of chances then from crosses. But obviously, it's hugely disappointing because, you start slipping down a bit in the table of the league. You were in front a couple of weeks ago, and now you're down to 5th place. And to be realistic, I mean, the fight for the Champions League spots is the highest priority for Spurs probably now.
Crazy, Greg. 5 last games they've taken the lead, and they've yet to register a win from that position.
Yeah, but I think West Ham are one of the best at doing what they do. And it is a very frustrating style at times for some of their supporters, but it has been somewhat successful for David Moyes, a Europa Conference League win. Fighting up near the top 4 a year or two ago. Dip in league form, obviously, last year, but been better this year. But look, Tottenham are going to find this a lot, where sides just want to sit in and just want to frustrate them. And West Ham, it's what they do most weeks, so they're pretty good at it. And Tottenham needed that second goal. But, for me, this Spurs story is all going to come down to... And they are in the fight for top 4. They've never, ever been in a fight for the Premier League this year. Even if they'd continued this form from the start of the season, I think there was always going to be these bumps in the road. And there's been a couple of big ones recently, but I think their participation in fighting for the top 4 come April is going to come down to injuries. It really is going to come down to the injury situation for them, for big players. Maddison, Van de Ven needs to come back. In the midfield, they need the cavalry to come back in. Bentancur's out again. We saw Bissouma come back in. So if they don't get these guys back, they will have to spend in January, which, as we know, is not really the Tottenham way. So I think it boils down to, if they are going to nick in there in 4th place or around about that spot, they're going to need to get these players back in the new year and sharpish.
Quite a forgiving tone that you have, given what they've done over the last month.
You ask... See, this is a kind of... I don't understand this sort of angle. I don't. Tottenham finished 8th last year. Tottenham sold the best striker, arguably, in Europe at the start of the season. They had a new manager coming in who'd managed in Asia and managed in Scotland. They've played this amazing football. Anything they do this year, for me, is a bonus, right? Because the football's been good.
Yeah.
They're entertaining the supporters. They're entertaining the neutrals. And if they can push in some cup competitions and get near that top 4, that for me is a step up. Then, in my opinion, next year, when he's had 12 months with his feet under the table, we can really look at where he's going to take this team. It's a little bit early, I think, to be judging, this squad, this manager, at this moment in time and saying, oh, they should be in there with you know, Aston Villa. They should be in there with up there with doing what Newcastle have done, getting to the cup final. They should be doing this, they should be doing that. I think that's a little bit in its infancy, if I'm being quite honest now. If we're sat here in 12 months' time and they're struggling and they're still giving away leads and they're still very open and he's not fixed it, that's probably going to be a different conversation. But for me at this moment in time, it's just a work in progress.
Frank, let's talk about some of the incidents in the game, in particular what proved to be the winner. Should your goalkeeper be doing better there?
Well, the Vicario when he saves,
yes,
well, yeah, he could have kept it. I think he made a decision. He didn't want to take any risks. He thought that one of his defenders going to get the ball back, and that's his decision. That was obviously a wrong one, but you know, it is what it is. I think for me, it's a real robbery from the Hammers, and there's nothing shameful about it. But you cannot say that West Ham deserve to win. Not even to draw is the way they play. They were very fortunate on the first goal. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. Even the second goal, they hit the post and it comes back to the player. So I wouldn't say that I'm impressed by what West Ham did. I'm kind of disappointed with the way that Tottenham played the second half, where they were very in the middle of the park and they don't try to go a little bit wide. But we have to talk about Koufal handball as well. I mean, just before West Ham first goal, there is a handball, and we clearly see Koufal moving his arm to make it bigger.
Frank, you find a penalty out of nowhere every time. Should be a penalty, should be a red card somewhere in
We were doing a game the other day, and I can't remember where it was, but Pete Van Leer was producing,
yes.
and something happened, and I said to Pete, do not text Frank. don't even ask the question. No penalty.
Jurgen, no penalty,
no.
no.
We saw worse than that.
Shut up, Frank, you've had your say. Jurgen, no, penalty, no. Just say no,
Okay.
we can move on.
Yeah, I would say no, yeah.
Perfect, good, right there
And
we
move
go.
on, and move on.
Jurgen, overall, obviously, Ange Postecoglou has won a lot of fans despite this recent run of form, given what he's come in and done to Spurs. How difficult is it to achieve what he's done in such a short period of time for a team that looked so dishevelled and so unwatchable last season?
I think it's remarkable, absolutely remarkable what he did in these couple of months. And that's why it's so frustrating today with that result, dominating the entire game. You should have put it away. You should have scored a second goal. And now, they lose this game and they slip in the table of the league. But what Ange has done over the last few months is wonderful, and he should continue to do that. But obviously, you have to also, certain games you have to grind out. Certain games you have to find ways against oppositions that stay so deep, like it happened today with West Ham, that you have some sort of cards in your pocket to play. Like, at the very end, they try to come more over the wings. They doubled on the sides. They cut a couple of good crosses in. I think the cross to Richarlison is probably the best example. So to create then chances and put these type of games away, this is really, really important, because obviously the confidence always goes with wins. When you have positive results, confidence is high, and everybody's happy. If the results are not coming in a few weeks, nobody cares anymore about the fact that you had 75% possession today against West Ham. So, but overall, I really, really like his style. I like his way he's doing things. He's a great communicator. He seems to have a good energy there. But you got to keep the results going, and hopefully they're coming back.
I think what we're going to see with Postecoglou, and I think one of the things is with Tottenham is that, if you're a Tottenham fan, you go to a game with hope, with expectation that you're going to play attacking football, which they are now, but with hope you're going to get this result that maybe you wouldn't have thought of. And I don't mean West Ham at home, I'm talking about City away when you're depleted. This would have been a white flag 12 months ago, but they go up there and they go, you know what, we get beat 6-0, but we're going for it. And I think that's what they're going to get. I think one of the things with Tottenham is, and I think Daniel Levy will be quite pleased with this, is that I think Postecoglou has shown, and it's not the same as Celtic, but he went into Celtic and he bought players from a market that people were going, well, who's he buying here? Some of these Japanese lads and some of the guys that people hadn't heard of, and they all come in and they're really, really good players and they can do a job. And I think they might go back into that market where they're not paying 60 or 70 million for players. They are going after guys that they might get for 10 or 15 million, and it will raise a few eyebrows, but I think ultimately he knows he's very astute at picking people, and he has been over the years, who are under the radar. And we all know Daniel Levy likes a little bit of that because they cost less. But that's kind of the way it works, and I think that's perfect for this club because it's unlikely that they're going to go out and splurge 100 million in one player. And so they have to go and find these little gems, and he's going to have to do that. He's shown he can do it before. Celtic's a different scenario, big club, but weaker league. Can he do it again with Tottenham? And I think he can, actually. I think he can go out there over the next 7 or 8 months, whatever it is. I don't think it'll be January. Find some of these guys that not many people know about, bring them in, integrate them into the way he wants to play, and take Tottenham forward. I sincerely hope that's what they're going to do, but as you well know, I'm a big fan just watching them.
You take a look at the list of injuries. Obviously, there's hope that James Maddison will be back in January, but Spurs legend Jurgen Klinsmann is going to ruin everything in January. You know what he's doing?
Taking people away.
Taking the best player away to the Asian Cup to represent South Korea. And it's a long time as well, Jurgen, that you're going to be taking Son away from Spurs. How could you do that to your former team?
Yeah, I'm really sorry, but somebody has to win the Asian Cup in February in Qatar. And unfortunately, the competition starts already early January, so he will be gone from the 2nd of January until hopefully with the final on the 10th of February. So more than 5 weeks, basically, he will be gone from Spurs. So will be the other players that play in Europe, if it's the Japanese players or other countries that participate in that competition. It's a bit like the Africa Cup of Nations that happens always in January as well. So not easy for the clubs to handle that, absolutely.
Jurgen, what's it like to work with him? Obviously, he's been one of the best players in the Premier League over recent years.
Oh, it's an absolute joy to work with Sonny. He's a top-class character. Obviously, he's a world-class player. But he's humble. He's down to earth, and he's always ready for a chat. He's ready for a joke. Responds all the time. You know, right away when you have something, you call him, you text him. It's a real privilege to have a player like him.
Right then, Frank, let's talk top four, shall we? Spurs, are they still in the hunt?
I think so. I want to believe on that because I think, as Craig and Jurgen explained, you know, it's a joy to watch them, and you want them to keep on fighting and maybe believe in some miracles because, as Craig mentioned before, for the past 2-3 years has been quite abysmal what we saw from them, and getting back to the business so early after Postecoglou decided to get in charge. I think it's kind of a miracle, and I want to believe that yeah, they can fight with I would say Manchester United, Aston Villa, doubtful against Liverpool, Manchester City or Arsenal, but they can do some good businesses, and hopefully they're going to fight until the end, and deserve anyway so far for me to be able to be in the top four.
Wow, this is very Spurs TV at the moment. I think Aston Villa would have a big argument with that, wouldn't they?
I think there's one spot up for grabs, really.
Yes.
Well, it depends if they hand the 5th spot to the Premier League, which I have no idea.
Well, let's not bother with that at the moment.
That's for some of our other colleagues to write about, or something when they got a bit more time.
Okay.
I think, to be honest with you, Aston Villa are a little bit more pragmatic. I think they're a little bit. They're
further down the line, aren't they?
I think they're further down the line. And the way they play, obviously the coach has been in there longer. You know, he was already in there for a big chunky last season. He sort of sussed it out, made 1 or 2 signings in the summer, like Tielemans to boost the squad, like Pau Torres, who he's needed, by the way, because Mings got injured first game of the season. And so all these guys down the spine have done a really good job for him. And they play nice football, but they're not as open as Tottenham. There's a bit more pragmatism about them. And I would say at the moment they're more of a shot for the top 4. In fact, you'd probably say they are the best side at the moment, including Man United and Newcastle, who are running a bit out of a bit of steam. And they've also got the upside is they've got a very, very experienced coach who's had success, who knows the Premier League from before, who's managed all around Europe, and the players have bought into what he's trying to do at Villa big time.
Yeah, how impressed have you been with what Unai Emery's done at Villa, Jurgen?
No, very, very impressed. Very impressed. You know, the football they play, Yeah, I think they definitely have a shot for the top four as well. They have the advantage that, Newcastle, for example, or Man United, they are busy also in Europe. Tottenham not. But no, very impressed and very positive of what I see from Aston Villa so far.